up at night with nightmares thinking of questions to ask y'all. I'm going to skip over this one. I don't know that you have this one. But I have little X's here letting me know I'm going to skip over. Okay. Now, we've talked about the MHC clefts and the polymorphism and so forth, but I want to emphasize again how the TCR on that T cell binds it. Here's an MHC one, so this is what type of cell? CD8. Yeah, this is an MHC one, right? So this is a CD8. If you notice that T cell receptor, it binds to both the MHC and the peptide that's held in the cleft. It has a shape that's complementary to both. So the attachment is to both MHC and peptide. It binds that MHC peptide as a unit. Okay, so it has to have a complementary shape to both. And some things that don't fit with this TCR, here's the same peptide, but it's in a different MHC. This would be a non-self peptide. This would be an MHC from another individual. Can that TCR bind? No. It can only bind to MHCs that are commonly present within that individual, the self MHCs. And here's a self MHC one, but it's the wrong peptide. It can bind that cleft, but if with that peptide bound in that cleft, you need to have a different T cell, a different clone of a T cell with a different TCR that can bind that peptide. Does that make sense? So the TCR is specific for both the MHC, and the MHC is a self MHC. And it's specific for the peptide held in that cleft. Non-covalent interactions, just like with an antibody and an antigen. Oh, and let me bring up another point. We're going to talk about it more later, but T cells and B cells may react to the same antigen. B cells can react to proteins, right? T cells have to react to peptides, okay, held in an MHC. But peptides bind to peptides in an MHC. B cells bind the proteins in their natural shape. Their natural shape, whereas T cells bind to a degraded peptide. To a peptide from the degraded protein. That's going to be a point we'll bring up later, but it hit me now, I might as well mention it now. Okay, so antibody binds to free antigen. Antigen that's in its normal functioning shape, the shape to which your body's exposed. Okay? But T cells recognize a part of that antigen, a little peptide from that antigen that's in the MHC. Okay, one of my favorite things, super antigens. Super antigens were discovered in the 70s when everything was super. Everything was super in the 70s. Y'all don't remember. You weren't around. But we had the Superman movies. Everything was super. And I know, because I'm going to tell y'all, and some of you know this, my nickname was awful before I got married. I've told some of you my nickname before I got married, haven't I? My maiden name, I don't want to lecture. My lecture, I don't have any, gosh,